Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Cook Inlet Tug and Barge is a marine transportation company specializing in harbor services with a primary marketing focus on the Port of Anchorage, providing their customers with quality-based service specifically tailored to their needs.
Indie Alaska is an innovative weekly web series capturing the diverse and colorful lifestyle of Alaskans. Real stories of everyday Alaskans at work and play. Supported in part by Alyeska Pipeline Service Company.
The National Weather Service.
And welcome to the show this evening. I'm meteorologist Mike Ottenweller. Today is March 23rd, Monday evening. And as always, you can keep up to date on our latest products via a few different methods. You can go to our website at arh.noaa.gov and check out all the watches and advisories that we have posted for tonight. Our weather info line is 1-800-472-0391. And you can keep up with us on social media as well. Taking a look at Facebook, NWS Alaska will get you there, or you can go to Twitter at NWS Alaska and use the hashtag AKwx to check out what's going on around all of Alaska. And then on YouTube, you'll be able to find this show and a few other products later on this evening after the show is complete. Start out with satellite imagery tonight. Fairly quiet weather continues for much of Alaska, with high pressure mainly in charge here over south central, starting to slip its way towards the Alcan border, but high pressure large and in charge, keeping things mostly clear across south central today. Another very, very sunny spring-like day out there. We do have a weak disturbance that continues to move through from southwest Alaska out towards the Pribilof Islands, and with that we've seen some light precipitation, mainly from Sandpoint, a little bit further east, stretching out towards the Pribilof Islands. None of that's really impacted the mainland other than just a few passing high clouds. As we get to the loop again, you can see just a few of those high clouds stretching up over towards the Arctic coast, and no real significant impacting conditions to speak of from that. We do have some lower clouds as high pressure dominates the northern portion of the state too. Some lower clouds are trapped, creating some aviation impact up over the northwest portion of the state. But other than that, it's been a pretty nice day for the mainland. Taking a look out into the Bering Sea, we do see that we have another area of high pressure out towards the Kamchatka Peninsula, and with that, more low stratus is intact for much of the western Bering Sea. Some northeast flow coming off the colder air, bringing some of the colder air down towards the Aleutian chain, is bringing some light snow showers, rain showers as you get back towards the eastern portion of the chain, but light snow showers mainly from the central Aleutians out towards the western Aleutians. And finally, as we look down towards the southern portion of the screen, you can see that we do have our next system that we'll be talking about for the next couple days here down in the northern Pacific, and it'll slowly work its way towards the Gulf of Alaska. And as it does so, we expect conditions to continue to go downhill for much of the Gulf of Alaska, especially marine conditions at this point. But we also are looking for some precipitation to start to wrap its way back into Kodiak Island. And as it does so, it'll start to change over to a rain-snow mix there in the eastern Aleutians. Out over towards the Pribilof Islands, we do have some of these areas of low pressure pushing through, creating some pockets of snow and occasionally blowing snow and some patchy fog. Looking out towards the western and central Aleutians, again, here is where we have our colder air wrapping down around this area of high pressure. And with that, we do see those snow showers all the way from Atka and Adak out towards Shimia. And those will continue while that high pressure remains out there for the next several days. And over the mainland, we do see our 1019 high pressure system centered right to the east of the Prince William Sound. And with that, we are keeping the skies clear for much of south central Alaska and even over the interior locations as well. And there's our high over the northern portion of the state at 1025 millibars, trapping some low clouds and patchy fog in the area up there, but really nothing too significant to speak of, especially considering the time of year. As we get towards southeast Alaska, you can see our area of low pressure down here at 1,011 millibars. Very weak area of low pressure, and we do expect this to dissipate overnight very small, tightly compact center system, and we do expect that to dissipate overnight as it brings just a little bit of light rain to areas south of the Dixon entrance. As we step into tonight's weather, again, not a whole lot of change expected other than keeping an eye on this low pressure system. It will continue to weaken down to 979 millibars as it moves from the North Pacific up into the Gulf of Alaska. It will bring some more warm air too to reinforce our already warm temperatures that we've been seeing over the past several days. And as it does so, it will also bring a fairly wide swath of rain stretching all the way from just south of Haida Gwaii all the way back towards Kodiak Island and eventually into the eastern Aleutians and Alaska Peninsula. As it does so, some of that rain will mix with that colder air that's coming around that high over the western Bering, and with that we do expect a rain-snow mix for much of the eastern Aleutians, the Cold Bay area down towards Sand Point. And as we look into the Pribilofs there, it will turn to all snow, possibly some patchy fog and reduced visibility with pockets of blowing snow. And we'll talk about that a little bit as we do have a blizzard watch in effect from Wednesday morning until Wednesday night for the Pribilof Islands. We're looking for conditions anywhere between 25 and 40 miles an hour, north winds, and new snow will be on the order of 1 to 2 inches, but the blowing snow is really where we're expecting the biggest impact from that. And we do expect visibilities down to as low as a quarter mile at times. And again, that's just a watch at this point, so make sure you stay tuned to see if that does become a blizzard warning for that time frame. Again, then we see that high pressure way out over the western Bering, continuing to wrap that cold air into the western and central Aleutians and bringing those isolated snow showers to areas over there. And then bringing your attention up here towards the northwest portion of the map, we do see a 1008 millibar low starting to work its way towards the Bering Strait. As it does so, that's what we're going to keep our eye on towards the latter half of the week for much of the northwest portion of the state and getting towards the Fairbanks and central interior regions. Clear skies are expected once again overnight tonight in Anchorage and much of south central Alaska as high pressure remains in control. On into Tuesday now, we do see our area of low pressure starting to slide a little bit farther north. Again, those rain showers just stretching from Haida Gwaii over towards Kodiak Island, and just a little bit of light precipitation and patchy fog expected with that system. As you get towards the eastern Aleutians, again, that is going to see that area of precipitation mix into rain and snow, and then just some snow showers continuing with this trough wrapping around the low pressure system for the Pribilof Islands and into Unalaska Bay, and then again turning back to rain snow as the warmer air south of the Aleutian chain. Over mainland Alaska, we do expect another day of clear skies, mostly clear skies, and warm temperatures for Tuesday, with high pressure remaining in control, but starting to slide off to the east a little bit here into central Canada as this low pressure continues to slide north and start to take over the weather pattern for the next several days. And on into Wednesday now, there we see the progression of that low pressure center at 973 millibars now. It has deepened and it will reach its minimum pressure, on Wednesday afternoon at 973. Now the rain is stretching all the way from southeast Alaska all the way back towards Kodiak Island. We will possibly see some of that rain make it over the Kenai and Chugach Mountains on into Thursday, but at least for Wednesday we look to keep things dry for the Cook Inlet region. And then again, we see that rain-snow mix as you get into the Alaska Peninsula, becoming all snow, and this is where we have our blizzard watch in effect from Wednesday morning until Wednesday night for the Pribilof Islands. Way out west, we do see another area of low pressure starting to slide over into our area, into the Bering Sea, and with that, we do expect the potential for some light precipitation and some rain and snow to mix into the western Aleutians. And again, high pressure remains in charge over much of the interior of Alaska with 1017 millibar high, just bringing some patchy fog to the Arctic coast. Taking a look at temperatures from around the state today, southeast Alaska was in the mid-40s to low 50s. As we get towards south central, Prince William Sound at 48 degrees with Middleton Island at 43 degrees. 43 degrees here in Anchorage, again a very balmy spring-like day out there with all that sunshine. 50 degrees all the way up to down in Homer. And as we get down to southwest Alaska, we can see mid to upper 40s for that area. Kodiak Island was coming in at 44 degrees, and then we saw things cool off just slightly as we went out towards the western Aleutians, low 40s and then upper 30s as you get out towards Dutch Harbor. Taking a look at the central portion of the state, we did see temperatures climb again into the mid-30s and even low 40s in some locations in the upper Tanana Valley, and all those continued all the way down until you got to the Bering Sea, where temperatures were more in the 15 to 20 degree range. Up towards the Brooks Range, things cooling off again as we got only to the 0 degree mark for many locations up there in north central interior. and 10 to 16 degrees for parts of the Brooks Range. Up towards the Arctic coast, we saw temperatures range anywhere from -14 to above 3 degrees above zero for Kaktovik. And then again, out at Gamble, we saw 12 degrees for the Bering Sea, where that colder air remains. As we look towards southwest Alaska, Bethel came in at 38 degrees this afternoon, with King Salmon at 49 degrees. And the Pribilof Islands, that's where that cold air remains, where our best chance of snow, 30 degrees out there. And we do see anywhere between upper 40s and then a little bit cooler towards Dutch and Atka at upper 30s down to 34 for Shimya. Tonight's low temperatures, you can expect low to mid 30s for much of southeast Alaska. South Central will be very similar to last night in the mid 20s. And as we get towards southwest Alaska, low 30s and then upper 20s, cooling off as you get north of the YK Delta there. Over the northern portion of the state, do expect temperatures to continue to be fairly warm for this time of year, anywhere between 10 and 15 degrees for the central interior, and then north of the Brooks Range, expect -15 to -20 for much of the Arctic coast. Out towards the Aleutian, tonight's temperatures will be in the mid-30s to low 30s in the western Aleutians. For tomorrow's high temperatures, very similar to today, with plenty of sunshine for many areas, mid to upper 40s for southeast Alaska, and then for the south central, we're looking for anywhere from low 40s to upper 40s as you get down towards King Salmon's area, 48 degrees. Out towards the Aleutians, again, that warming trend will continue for those areas as that warm front approaches, mid to upper 40s and mid 30s to low 40s for the central and western Aleutians. Up towards the Brooks Range, coldest temperatures remain confined north of that area, anywhere between -3 to -10 below zero. And for the central interior, 25 to 35 degrees, another very warm spring-like day. For tomorrow's flying weather, we have MVFR conditions expected around that area of low pressure, and our potential for IFR conditions is going to be where the tightest gradient is through this region here, where you can see some strong northeast winds, possibly reducing visibilities and bringing some of those ceilings down in snow showers off of Bristol Bay's coast. As we get into tomorrow's past conditions, Anaktuvik will be VFR, and you'll notice a trend as Adigan is VFR, Lake Clark and Merrill remain VFR. Rainy will be VFR. Also looking for windy to be VFR, Isabel and Mentasta visual flight rules, Tanita and Portage will also be in that same category. Chilkoot and White also VFR. For our morning freezing level, you can see the surface line is still just south of the Cook Inlet, and that is because in the overnights we are getting below freezing, but certainly in the daytime this is rebounding. And the warmest air will again be associated with that next low pressure system at about 4,000 foot freezing levels as you get towards the North Pacific and Southern Gulf. In tomorrow's icing, we do look for light to isolated moderate, again, around that area of low pressure from southeast back towards southwest Alaska. And we do have some pockets of that coming off the Pribilof Islands and down towards the central Aleutian chain. This will mainly be above 6,000 feet. And this area here will be our occasional widespread moderate, again, with stronger winds starting to work their way in from east to west into Kodiak Island. Taking a look at the jet stream, we do have that area of low pressure way up over the Arctic with 50 to 70 knots of the jet moving from west to east up over northern Canada. The bigger activity is definitely south of our area where 170 knots comes out of the west into 130 and then 90 knots dipping south of that low pressure system. This system will not have a whole lot of chance to develop because the jet does remain so far south of the area. It then trails off just into the Vancouver portion of Canada and then off into Canada at 105 knots with, again, high pressure keeping things relatively calm as far as jet activity over the mainland. Look at 9,000 foot winds now. We do see light winds over the western Bering from 30 to 10 knots until you get down to the central Aleutians. Out over the Gulf, there's our area of low pressure at 9,000 feet, and we do see a tighter gradient on the eastern side of that low, bringing anywhere to 50 knots out of the southwest. Over the mainland, relatively calm conditions at 9,000 feet, 10 to 20 knots out of the southwest. And as you get to southeast Alaska, we do see high pressure and in control and keeping winds relatively light unless you're south of the Dixon Entrance where 40 knots are expected out of the southwest. For the 3,000 foot winds, very similar conditions, just a little bit lower speeds. High pressure out over the Bering brings things around this ridge of high pressure at 25 knots from the north-northeast. Our strongest winds are going to be found near Kodiak Island again from the east, and that's where we have that area of turbulence expected from the 65 knots here at 3,000 feet interacting with some of the terrain. For the Gulf, mainly southwest becoming southeasterly flow as you get towards the state, 35 becoming 20 knots and then 10 knots over the mainland. And again, talking about our turbulence, we do see that strong easterly flow bringing in an area of isolated, occasional widespread moderate from the eastern portion of the Gulf back towards Kodiak Island, and a light to isolated moderate stretching from the Pribilof Islands down through the eastern and central Aleutians as we see those stronger winds wrapping around the area of low pressure. That's it for this portion of the segment. We'll be right back to check out the marine forecast.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Mary O'Connor with the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation and the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health. On behalf of Alaska Public Media, thank you for watching Hangar Flying. This evening, we are honored to have Roger Motzko on the show. He has been an integral part of the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation's seminars in creating the what-if scenarios that allow pilots to test their judgment in various flight scenarios. Roger is also the Technical Services Manager in the Air Traffic Organization's Safety and Technical Training Unit within the Federal Aviation Administration. And Captain Motzko has recently retired from the U.S. Navy. Congratulations, sir, and welcome to Hangar Flying.
Well, thank you very much, Captain O'Connor. So as I told you before, all captains address each other by their first name. So Mary, thank you very much, and I appreciate that accolade.
It sounds like you have a lot of jobs.
Yeah, so I have a lot of great work that I get to do public service-wise for both the Federal Aviation Administration and formerly for the Navy, and can't have better work than, of course, working in aviation safety.
That's true, and it pays huge dividends. Can you tell us exactly what you do for the FAA?
Yeah, so that's a little difficult. So it comes down to computational forensics. We like to look at risk in the aviation system and say, so what things are causing pilots or controllers the most consternation? And then when events don't go exactly as we would like them to, probably about 7,000 times a year, sometimes they're close and sometimes not so close, but we want to keep the system safe. And so we take those events and then we reconstruct them. And we try to reconstruct them into a cartoon so that you can look at the animation and visually you can get a little bit from what you see and then from what you hear from the air traffic communications. And then we put that together so that we can help you solve that problem. And so you've got that puzzle solved for you, and then you can look back at it and say, maybe I learned something from that.
So you take events that aren't necessarily fatalities,
Right.
but learning opportunities, and you create a reenactment.
Mm-hmm.
Who gets to see these and learn from these?
So we create them for a wide variety of audiences, primarily for air traffic controllers and facilities, so we can teach them, of course, for any pilot organization, any CFI, airline companies come to us, small and large, and say, hey, do you have something that looks like this? Because they may be trying to teach a point. And so we'll go through our archive of about 300 plus events that we've produced over the last 10 years. We produce right now between 30 and 60 of these a year. So we try to update those, and then I try to make that list available to people. So anybody that would like to have an example of something, well, we'd encourage them to contact the Alaska Aviation Safety Foundation, who works directly with us, and we'd find something for them.
Wow, that sounds like a huge, valuable resource.
Yeah, so giant library, giant educational library, and better than self-education, it's mentored education so that you can get up there and do just a little bit of hand flying along with watching them.
So if an aviation company wanted to learn from an accident that had occurred, not at their company, but at a different company, they could go to you and ask for some training tools. And would there be a cost?
So there's no cost for this. We're the United States government. We, of course, take requests from the public. We take requests from facilities. We try to weigh those out with, of course, the folks that we have and schedule them. And I'll give you a very realistic time scale of when we would have it available, or if we're able to do it, or even if the information is available. With the great tools that we have today in risk analysis and system tracking, generally I can find the piece that you're looking for or something close enough that will allow you to get your training point across. Because of course it's not about who, it's about what.
And if I wanted to be proactive in a company and address a problem before it actually became an event, I could just describe that to you and you'd come up with it?
Absolutely. So that's what we're looking for, is to get those things that we consider maybe a risk to the system, create something that simulates that so that you can learn from it, train people to it, so that they don't have to experience it themselves the first time. They can actually go through a training event and look at it and analyze it.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's great stuff.
And do you have a team that works with you?
We do. So I like to consider our team the entire aviation organization that flies in the United States. So we have lots of pilots that come in. We've got graphic animators. So Rob Roy Menzies works in our office. He's a professional graphic animator, and he sits and draws all day long and animates things so that we can make better sense out of it. But all pilots, all air traffic controllers, they all participate. It's a great team.
Well, it sounds like everybody can learn from your products too, so it's a great opportunity for everybody.
Absolutely, and we want to share them with you, and we want to share them with the aviation public.
Thank you so much for being our guest tonight, and thank you for your support of the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation. It's been a pleasure having you on Hangar Flying, and we will look forward to seeing you on our next episode. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join us for our next Hangar Flying when we bring Mr. Motzko back to talk about the FAA's Air Traffic Top 5. Until next time, fly safely.
And welcome back to the marine portion of your forecast. Let's get started with Southeast Alaska here on Tuesday. Not terrible conditions to speak of across the marine waters. We do see southeast flow near Dixon Entrance at about 15 knots, becoming a little bit more northeasterly as you get towards the northern portions there, 10 knots. And then out of Lynn Canal, 15 knots, as seas running anywhere between 2 and 3 feet. As you get over the open waters, southeast becoming easterly flow, 20 to 25 knots, and seas generally between 6 and 8 feet. Now, as that area of low pressure approaches on Wednesday, we do expect winds and seas to both intensify and increase from the southeast Alaska. We do see the open waters now showing anywhere between south to east winds about 40 knots, and seas will generally be building from 15 all the way up to 18 feet as you get in towards the Yakutats area. And then for Dixon Entrance, we do expect southeast winds 25 knots, becoming a little bit more towards the northeast and Clarence Strait, and then 25 knots out of the north for Lynn Canal. Seas on the inside passageways will generally be on the order of 5 feet. Towards south central Alaska, starting with Cook Inlet, we expect northeast flow at about 15 knots, seas 3 feet. Similar conditions in Prince William Sound, just slightly lower winds at 10 knots. And over the open waters towards Middleton Island, 25 knots out of the east, becoming 30 and 35 all the way up to 40 knots as you get just east of Kodiak Island there. And seas will be on the order of 10 to 14 feet. For Cook Inlet and stretching all the way down to Shelikof Strait, expect 20 to 35 knots out of the northeast. Seas will be on the order of 7 to 12 feet as you get into Shelikof area. On Wednesday, that area of low pressure will also have an impact on south central marine zones, with everyone seeing an increase in winds. Cook Inlet will see northeast winds 20 knots, seas building to 4 feet. Prince William Sound 25 knots, small craft conditions there, seas 6 feet. And over the open waters, we do expect all the way from maximum gales to storm force winds at 50 knots out of the east and northeast, and seas on the order of 16 to 21 feet. Over the Cook Inlet region and stretching down toward Shelikof Strait, northeast winds intensifying there as well, with seas building. Winds will be on the order of 25 to 45 knots and seas between 7 and 12 feet. Taking a look at the Alaska Peninsula now, northeast flow generally across the entire region at 25 knots and seas slightly higher south of the chain at 8 to 13 feet and only 3 to 7 feet north of the Alaska Peninsula. On Wednesday, we'll start to see some impacts from that low pressure system as winds start to curl around towards the northwest from the northeast, and 25 to 35 knots will be the predominant flow there. And seas, again, 12 to 13 feet south of the chain, with 5 building up to 13 feet just north of Cold Bay. For the Aleutians, expect northeast to northerly flow, generally speaking, anywhere between 15 and 30 knots, with seas building as you work towards the west, 5 to 6 feet, and then all the way up to 30 feet here in the central Aleutians. 10 feet in the central Aleutians. And over the Wednesday period, we do expect those northeast to northwest flows to continue, with 30 to 35 knots for the eastern portion of the chain, coming down to 20 knots as you get out towards the western Aleutians. North of the chain, expect 14 feet to 11-foot seas, and south of it, you can expect 9 to 12-foot seas south. For the west coast of Alaska, we do expect north to northeast flow in this region as well, and winds will generally be between 20 and 30 knots. We do expect some freezing spray right along the ice edge here on Tuesday, and seas will be on the order of 3 to 9 feet as you get a little bit farther away from the ice edge. Then on Wednesday, we're looking for conditions to continue out of the north, and winds will intensify just a little bit, about 5 knots more than Tuesday, expecting 30 to 35 knots for the most part. That freezing spray does diminish as temperatures continue to warm slightly, and seas on the order of 2 to 11 feet. And for the Arctic coast, again, easterly flow becoming northerly flow, 10 knots generally speaking throughout the entire domain. And on Wednesday, we do expect winds to increase, but remain out of the east to northeast, 10 to 20 knots. So let's recap tonight's forecast, and through the next couple days, our area of low pressure will continue to work its way northward. Meanwhile, a few weak areas of low pressure rotate through the eastern Aleutians and continue to bring some snow and the rain-snow mix towards the Sandpoint and Cold Bay area. On into Tuesday, we do see those showers diminish a little bit as this area of low pressure starts to take charge of all the weather and bring some light precipitation from Haida Gwaii all the way back to Kodiak Island, mixing with a little bit of snow as you get towards the eastern Aleutians. Fair weather remains in place for much of mainland Alaska under the influence of high pressure. On Wednesday, we do expect to see a tighter gradient as we look over south central Alaska, and with that, we do have some concern for a little bit of fire weather conditions with strong northeast flow out of the Matanuska Valley. We don't expect any precipitation between now and then, and those dry conditions could lead to some fire weather concerns. We thank you for watching the show this evening, and have a great night.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.